Hello, this is a guy who likes fanfiction and is too lazy to read, so here is the Blade Breaker's Daughters in audio form. Check the description for the links to the author. Chapter 41, Talk of Tragedy. Is everyone okay? Edelgard asked once the battle had come to an end. Lonato was dead and his remaining forces were, well, also dead. Untrained civilians didn't have much of a chance when facing off against trained combatants. No major injuries, Lady Edelgard, Ferdinand responded. We've already healed up the minor ones as well. See, can we go home now? Bernadetta asked, trembling as she gripped her bow. Once the knights finish their sweep we will, Edelgard responded as she scanned her class. Despite Ferdinand's claim, it was clear he was merely putting on a brave face, especially given how shaken most of their class seemed. Maybe we should sit down for now? Dorothea asked, trying to put a smile on. If we're going to wait, no sense in just standing around, right? That is true. In that case, everyone, make sure to rest and recover before we march back, Edelgard commanded, which seemed to be the right thing to do as a good deal of her class immediately collapsed onto the ground. Has anyone seen the professor? She went to find a river. Surprisingly, it was Emily who responded there, the student leaning against a tree. The disguised student scowled before pointing off in a direction. That way. Hubert, make sure to keep an eye on everyone. I shall return soon enough. Of course, Your Majesty. Should I go with you, Lady Edelgard? Ferdinand, please stay here, I need to discuss something private with her, Edelgard responded, feeling thankful that he didn't press the topic as he moved to sit down. Walking off, Edelgard made sure to keep her guard up. While she was certain any remaining militia would surrender at sight of her, she still had to keep careful. That aside, she couldn't help but wonder what her professor was doing. She understood that she had her history with Lonato and Catherine, so Edelgard wanted to make sure her professor was okay. Thankfully, the river she was trying to find was nearby and she easily spotted the mercenary-turned-professor crouching down near it as she splashed water upon herself. There you are, Professor, Edelgard called out, before frowning as Byleth didn't respond. Professor. Walking up to her, Edelgard reached up to place a hand on her shoulder, making the mercenary flinch in response. Edelgard, I didn't notice you, Byleth responded, turning to look at her. Are you okay, Professor? It's not like you to let someone sneak up on you. I was just focusing on cleaning myself off, Byleth responded in the same tone, before she stuck her hands back into the water. There was nary a trace of blood on them even as she wrung them in the water. Professor, I heard what happened with Lord Lonato. Do you want to speak about it? There's nothing to talk about, we completed our mission, and now we wait to head back, Byleth responded. Did anyone get hurt? No, Professor, Edelgard answered. If I may ask, how close were you to Lord Lonato? Not especially. He was a client, if one I failed, Byleth answered. Though, I can't help but wonder if I hadn't failed, would things have ended up like this? I suppose that is something we all have to wonder about our own failures, Edelgard said, looking down at the water herself. Even now, I can't help but wonder what my decisions will cause. Right, being the Emperor means you'll need to decide big things. Yes, it also means I cannot afford to hesitate or falter either. As the Emperor I may face issues with any reforms I establish, and may even likely have to end a rebellion like this one should they arise. Even if someone I care about is leading them. That sounds tough. Such is the price of being the one in charge. Even if I end up like Lonato and end up sending citizens to their deaths for a just cause, I must continue onward. Though I suppose that's easier to say now since I am just a student. Byleth brought her hands out of the water. I don't think I could ever do that. Truly? You seem skilled as a commander though. Right. And I want to keep everyone under my command alive. I don't think I could sacrifice people. She sighed, before brushing her hands on her clothes. I understand there will always be a risk of death in battle. But I'm not going to let anyone die for me if I can prevent it. Perhaps that's the difference between a commander and a ruler, Edelgard mused, before shaking her head when Byleth glanced at her. Never mind. We should get back to everyone. We should, Byleth agreed as she stood up. Hopefully the knights will finish their sweep soon. As Edelgard went off to find Byleth, the Black Eagles couldn't calm down as they waited for the knights to finish their sweep. One student in particular couldn't help but let out a frustrated yell. Ack! What was the point of this? Caspar yelled out as he stomped his foot. They didn't even need us, it was just a bunch of townsfolk. Ferdinand clenched his jaw, frustration evident on his face. One can only wonder just what led Lord Lonato into doing this. Hubert muttered. It doesn't matter what reason he had. He led a bunch of innocent people to their deaths. Caspar shouted again. Oh, why are you complaining? Townsfolk or not, the fact that they rebelled makes them outlaws, doesn't it? Emily asked, a mocking grin on her face. Caspar stiffened, his gaze turning towards his classmate. What the hell? What is wrong with you? How could you say that? Dorothea asked, equally taken aback by Emily's mockery. How could I say that? I'm not the one who was arguing about the morality of killing subhumans, now was I? She asked again, making Caspar flinch. How are you having the knowledge of that? You were not in the class, Petra questioned with a faint frown. What, do you think I skip out on class all the time? Just because you don't notice me doesn't mean I'm not around, Emily said, pointedly staring at Hubert with that line, making him bristle in response. Either way, don't act like you're better just because you only kill bad guys. Who knows, maybe one day one of you might be a bad guy we go up against. Because regardless of what side of that I'm on, I certainly won't hesitate. Ferdinand stood straighter with a deep frown on his face. We are all part of the same class, Emily, and citizens of the Empire as well. There is nothing that would cause us to fight each other like that. Pfft, ha. Ah, you can't believe that, Ferdy, she mocked, smirking at the tall redhead. Wasn't it your dear old daddy who turned against the Emperor, You can't tell me you forgot. I'm sure Edel didn't. So I wonder how long it's going to be before Adrestians start spilling Adrestian blood again. Though who's to say it'll even be the good princess that decides to take her vengeance, Maybe there'll be a commoner uprising, or the big bad general in charge of the military decides he should be at the top of it all. Her smirk widened as she stepped closer, playful and cruel as Ferdinand grimaced, clearly unhappy. Don't think for a second that you're safe because of lineage or authority or that special, noble blood of yours. The most powerful man in the Empire can get splattered by a rock on complete accident. Do you really think you won't get dragged into the violence when Edel decides your daddy's gotta go? Because you and me, we both know it's coming. And when he goes, well, I see a whole lot of people here whose parents were part of that insurrection that got all her siblings. Korsh. Emily paused, then glanced over at Hubert with a mocking smile. Oops. What, you don't like being reminded that your own daddy betrayed the imperial family? I am well aware of what my father has done, he replied in a low, dangerous tone. You're not doing yourself any favors by dredging up the past. Oh, how scary though. Speaking of favors, none of you are doing any favors to yourself by acting like you're on some moral high horse. Murder is murder, no matter who you kill, Emily said, a smirk on her face. Which faded away to annoyance as Byleth and Edelgard walked back to the group. Byleth glanced around the group, seeing the obvious tension in the air, as well as several glares aimed at Emily. Aside from Bernadetta, who was hiding as far behind a tree as she could get. We should head back to the monastery. Professor. Looking at Byleth, Edelgard felt a bit surprised. There's not much else we can do here. I'll make sure to deal with any trouble in case the church gets angry we went back early, Byleth said, before nodding to the class. All of you deserve to be able to rest in a bed, not on the ground in the cold. Well, I certainly won't argue with that, Lindhart muttered, finally speaking up as he stood up. I'll go on ahead. Silently Byleth watched the students begin to walk off, before she glanced at Edelgard. Make sure none of them wander off, I'll catch up soon. Try not to take too long, Professor, Edelgard said, nodding as she walked towards the group. Emily, a word. Byleth called out to the minor noble before she could walk off. What do you want? Are you okay? Huh? What's with the sudden question? You were in the fight with Lord Lonato, right? Byleth asked. I didn't check earlier, but were you injured against him? Feh, as if I would get hurt by an old man like him. Also, why are you still calling him Lord Lonato? You were the one who killed him. Byleth's face tightened. Yeah, I did. He was a good man, and I still had to kill him. Regardless of what I thought of him, he nearly killed Shay. You can say I was being selfish, but between the two, I would choose my sister every time. Heh, not so much of a goody two-shoes are you. I never said I was, Byleth responded, all I want to do is make sure the people I care about are safe. Humph. Sure, whatever, she muttered, walking away without another word. Byleth watched her leave and let out a little sigh. She knew this mission was going to be messy no matter what happened, but she didn't think it would be this bad. And she still couldn't get that image out of her head. The memory of a time that hadn't happened, one where Lonato had readily stabbed her sister straight through the chest. Shay wasn't sure what she should feel. She was glad none of her classmates got hurt, but that didn't mean it was all okay. She reached her hand up, about to reach over to Ash as her friend cried over Lonato. Please don't beat yourself up, Ash. We did what we had to do. Only to immediately bring her hand back as Dimitri spoke up. I know. I'm sorry. Ash said, wiping away his tears. Hey Ash, why don't you go check on your siblings? Shay suggested, not really sure what else to say. Why yeah, I should, check on them and the town, Ash said, trying to put on a brave face. I'll return as quickly as possible. Nodding to the two, Ash ran off, leaving Shay alone with Dimitri. I've had to deal with rebellions before, but that was the first time I've had to fight civilians, those I've sworn to protect. The prince murmured. I've never had to do something like this either, Shay responded, unsure of what else to say to that. I would imagine so. Captain Gerald does not seem like the type of man who would accept such work, Dimitri said, before he frowned. How is your sister doing? I had heard that she was the one to deal with Lonato. Her and Catherine. Shay really wasn't sure how to feel about that. She knew it was their mission to work with her, but why would Byleth be willing to work with the knight who nearly killed her? And to take out Lonato? Gritting her teeth, Shay couldn't help but feel angry. She had hoped that maybe they could have talked Lonato down. Maybe it didn't have to end with his death. But then, there wasn't anything you could do there, Arvel assured, your sister made that quite clear. Shay let out a breath and turned back to Dimitri. So, you fought in a rebellion before? I did, yes. It was in the west, though, more north from here, the prince explained, his gaze turning northward. Would you believe I cannot even remember the name of the lords that rebelled? They were minor in the grand scheme of things, seeking independence from the kingdom after my father's death. They claimed their lands shouldn't belong to Faerghus, for they were once their own independent nation. It is interesting to think that these men of Mach wanted independence from Faerghus just as Faerghus wanted independence from Adrestia. Neat. Why is that important? I'm just thinking of the parallel. That was the battle where never mind. We already have far too many tragedies marring this day to discuss my failings. Oh, all right, if you say so. Shay shrugged, not really getting why Dimitri brought that stuff up if he didn't want to talk about it. Should we head back to everybody then? Yes, I suppose we should. Weird, he seemed kind of disappointed. Arvel sighed. Partner, he clearly wants to talk about his tragedy here, he is just being overly polite. Talk to him. Hey Dimitri. Tell me about that thing that happened. Dimitri blinked. Which thing are you referring to? You know, the thing you said was a failure. What's up with that? Arvel sighed again. You are a master of tact, partner. Well, to make a long story short, I showed a side of myself that I didn't intend to during the battle against the rebels, and Felix witnessed my savage actions. He did not take it well. That's why he's such an asshole to you. Dimitri blinked, then pretended to cough. I would not, he has his reasons. Well, what are they? Because I'm pretty sure there's some kind of rule where you can get in a lot of trouble for insulting royalty, right? They are. I really shouldn't speak of Felix's behalf. Okay, then tell me what you're thinking. You can't speak for Felix, sure, but you can speak for yourself. Why do you think he's mad all the time? A few reasons, I imagine. His brother died for my sake, and while fighting alongside one another, he saw that I enjoyed it. Enjoyed fighting? That's not that weird. I mean, it's kind of hypocritical for him to get mad at that when he's always picking fights. Killing. He saw me enjoy killing. Shay blinked. Oh, So that's it then. He sighed. So now you know. And I can tell you are revising your opinion of me as well. I understand, I am a monster dash. Hey, look, I don't think you're a monster. I think it's weird that you like killing. That's not really something I would hope to hear from a king and all. Hey, no getting sad. I can see your face getting sad. Apologies, I just... No. Shush. Just, okay. You're not the first friend I've had that's homicidal, and you're nice. Seriously, you're not even that aggressive, you're like, I dunno, I guess animal-wise I'm supposed to call you a lion since that's the Faerghus thing? But you're more friendly? I don't know what lions are like, by the way, I'm just trying to say you're not a bad person despite liking to murder people. No, hold on, that wasn't how I meant to say that. I mean, it's not like you stalk the streets looking for victims, right? You just get too into it when you're fighting. There is more to it than that. I do not enjoy that side of myself, but it does exist. And I understand why it would horrify those around me if ever I were to embrace it. No one should enjoy hurting others, much less killing them. Yeah, but people do. I mean, look at Emily. She's pretty much an outright sadist, but she's still my friend. Stuff like that, it's not all there is to someone. And from what she's told me, she put those urges towards hunting, not murdering commoners, so that's a good thing you could maybe try. You are referring to the act of hunting, and not the part about murdering commoners, right? Wah, no, of course I mean the hunting part, not the... She frowned, scrutinizing the prince. Was that a joke? He tried not to smile. I was just asking for clarification. Fair. All right, if you're feeling good enough to poke fun at me, then you're good enough to admit you have more good qualities than bad ones. So knock it off with the said stuff. Right, of course. Dimitri did his best to smile. Don't worry, I'm feeling better. Okay, good. Hey, do you think we should follow Ash and check out Gaspard? You know, make sure things are okay. While I do see the kind intentions behind that gesture, I do not think it would be the best idea to go there directly after killing so many of the town's citizens. Oh. Yeah, that's a good point. And that brought down the mood again. Shay let out a sigh. Hopefully next month's mission will be easier. Chapter 42, New Month, New Problems. Claude sighed. It was a long, drawn-out sigh, one designed to attract attention from a certain purple-haired classmate of his. Not the pompous one or the easily frightened one, but the mercenary one, who was currently sitting at the same table as him in the mess hall. She didn't notice, apparently too invested in the meat skewers she was trying, so he decided to sigh louder and longer, really putting in some weary, woe is me oomph into it. Still nothing. So he decided to try again and was promptly jabbed in the shoulder by Hilda. Would you knock it off? She's not going to notice. MMF? Notice what? Shay asked, glancing across the table at the two of them. Whoa, hey Claude, when did you get here? Okay, point taken, no more being subtle with Shay, he decided, before grinning over at his mercenary friend. Hey Shay. I was just thinking that it's a shame your class basically got to spend an entire month with the Eagles while us poor dear were left out in the cold. I don't think you can really say that considering how cold Faerghus was when we went up there, Shay replied. The metaphorical cold. The cold of loneliness, as we were left abandoned by our friends and classmates as they went on their own special mission. It wasn't that special. We killed a civilian militia and Ash's dad, so it was actually pretty depressing. He wouldn't guess it from how casual her tone was. Dmitri took it kind of hard. I think he thinks he should have done more? But he was more lively when I saw him earlier today, so I guess he's fine. Well, he is going to be the king of Faerghus, so I guess that's to be expected. From what I've heard, the nobles of that house have had to put down some rebellions before, so they're probably used to it. Same can't be said for the Black Eagles though, Claude mentioned, glancing over at Ferdinand, who seemed quite restless as he tried to enjoy his tea. Yeah, even Bai and I haven't done something like that before, so it must be tough on them, Shay said as she let out a sigh. Guess I'm just too used to the mercenary lifestyle to think about how stuff like this is affecting them. Ah, but it's that same experience that helped make sure they all returned back, so I say that makes it even, Claude said with a wink. Though I must say, the lions and eagles getting trained by two skilled mercs is quite enviable. Why, at this rate, the golden deer won't stand a chance at the battle of lion and eagle. Heh, guess that means you'll have to find your own merc. You wound me, my friend. You'll send me out alone in this cold dark world without any help. And here I thought a mercenary of your caliber had more honor than that. Claude sighed dramatically. To think, first the older sister plans on stealing one of my own, and now the little sister can't even spare any kindness. Shay quirked an eyebrow. What's that about by stealing? The professor is obviously planning on stealing Marianne away, of course. Wait, what? Hilda asked, surprised at that revelation. Isn't it obvious? She and Marianne have been spending plenty of time together with the horses, and they even had tea together. Clearly she's planning on stealing the members of our house, starting with her. Pretty sure that's just by being nice, Shay replied. Yeah, like, it's nice Marianne has another friend, but I'm not sure how well she'd do in a different class, Hilda said. Heck, it sounds like Ferdinand and Linhard are a bit too overbearing for her from what she said. Wait, seriously? I can get Ferdinand being too much, but half the time I see Linhard he's practically falling asleep, and the other half of the time he's actually asleep. I'm just going off what I heard. Granted, Marianne didn't tell me directly, it was more so her muttering. Well, I'll check with Bai, just in case. If you're going to do that, why not also ask how my house can team up with hers, or yours if we can? Claude asked, trying to get the topic back on track. After all, it's only fair we get to have a little fun too, no? Why don't you ask her then? I don't even know what mission we'll have this week, and until we have that info, there's no telling what it'll be like. True. I can't help but wonder if it'll be more exciting than having to deal with a rebellion. Not sure how it can be. Our mission this month is to assist the knights in defending the monastery against an assassination attempt on the archbishop, Byleth bluntly stated to her class after she received the mission. What? Bernadetta squeaked, nearly falling out of her chair. It's just one thing after another, isn't it? Lin muttered, slumped on his desk. To be specific, the knights themselves will be defending the archbishop, while we, along with the other houses, will be patrolling the monastery on the rite of rebirth to ensure nothing happens, Byleth explained, trying to ease the tension. We've even been allowed to choose where to patrol. To further add on to what the professor said, we believe the assassination attempt may be an attempt to hide what the perpetrators might truly be after, Edelgard said, getting her classmates to look at her. As such, we will need to find what places they might be likely to strike. See, can I just patrol my room? Bernadetta asked, getting Edelgard to sigh. Said Sai abruptly stopped as she saw her professor actually think about that. The dormitories are where several nobles are residing, so they might try to steal any valuables there. I don't want any thieves coming into my room. Bernadetta yelped, looking even more worried. I don't think you'll have to worry about that, Bernadetta, Ferdinand said. Excuse me for saying so, Professor, but I don't think it's likely anyone would fake an assassination attempt on the archbishop just to steal some things from the students. We have to consider all possibilities, Byleth countered. As such, we'll be working with the other classes to ensure we're evenly spread out. If you find anything worth reporting, then do make sure to inform Professor Manuela and Professor Hanneman. Well, that's good. Who knows, maybe this month we won't have a tough mission, Dorothea muttered as she leaned back in her chair. Heh, I don't know about you, but I'm fired up to fight some real bad guys. Casper shouted, not wanting to sit still. As long as we are not fighting in the cold, I shall be ready, Petra said with a nod. If any of you need to, then take it easy for the investigation, Byleth said, there will be many eyes on watch, so not everyone needs to assist. Professor. Edelgard gave Byleth a surprised look. We trained a lot last month, it's important to recover so we don't strain ourselves, Byleth explained, though Edelgard felt that wasn't the full story as the professor moved to the chalkboard. For now though, we have a lesson to start. A few of you were interested in my technique to keep warm while in cold regions, so we will be focusing on magic studies for today. Ah, Kman, Casper whined, already looking annoyed, I'm never good with this reason stuff. It's just an opening lesson, Casper. I'm sure by the end of it, everyone should be able to cast at least a basic spell, though we might have some difficulties actually teaching the warming technique to those who can't cast fire spells. Byleth tilted her head in thought as she started sketching some basic sigils and diagrams from her books on magic. If it helps, I can show you how to set your weapons on fire with magic afterwards. Wait, really? Then alright, let's do this. Edelgard did her best not to sigh or roll her eyes at her classmates' enthusiasm. Instead, she paid attention to the professor's lesson, which she did have to admit was fairly basic in terms of magical education. That didn't make it useless though, especially as the professor took the time to make sure everyone could cast at least a basic version of an elemental spell, and there was some practice afterwards as everyone gave their new abilities a try. Unfortunately for Bernadetta and especially Petra, it turned out their own natures didn't mesh well with fire at all. Bernadetta turned out to be better with ice and thunder magic, while Petra only managed to form a basic wind spell, much to her disappointment. Casper, however, was the most vocally disappointed, as he discovered that it was actually very difficult to light a weapon on fire without causing the whole thing to fall apart. Ack, how do you do this? He asked Byleth, looking frustrated at the charred axe in his hand. I think part of the problem is that you have to be doing calculations in your head the whole time, Byleth explained, picking an axe up from the pile to help demonstrate. The actual mathematics tend to vary. It's not as simple as saying it's arithmetic or calculus, it's more about remembering a sequence of symbols and how they relate to each other. The sigils formed when magic is used does have specific meanings to it. I tend to think of it as fire plus control added on top of blade, where blade represents a changing variable. That variable has to be marked as non-consumable because fire naturally wants to burn whatever it's attached to, which is tricky to do. You can't convince fire to recognize the variable as fire because then it reacts to it like it's a competing flame. Sorry, am I making sense? Casper crossed his arms over his chest and nodded firmly. Totally. I just don't get it at all. Ah. Maybe I could ask the blacksmith if he can make you a magic axe. Oh wow, would you? That would be awesome. Sure, why not? I was just going to get you flowers for your birthday, but a magic axe sounds better. A magic axe sounds way better. Wait, you know it's my birthday today. Yup. I like to keep track of these things. Aw man, you're the best, Professor. At least he was happy by the end of the lesson. The same couldn't be said for the pair of students who came up to Byleth after class though, while the professor was reading through some papers at her desk. Professor? Do you think we could talk for a moment? Dorothea asked, prompting Byleth to glance up at her and Bernadetta, who seemed as fidgety as usual. Sure, what do you need? Dorothea took a breath. I wanted to ask, does it get any easier? She sighed. Killing people, like we did on the assignment. I don't think I'm the right person to ask that question to. Dorothea paused, before frowning in some concern. What do you mean, Professor? I mean it's always been easy for me. Byleth glanced at Bernadetta when she noticed her flinch, but decided not to mention it at the moment. I don't like killing, but I don't feel anything when I kill. I don't take pleasure in it. I just don't hesitate. Oh really? But you looked sad, Bernadetta said, before stiffening. I am sorry, don't be mad. I'm not mad at you, Bernadetta. I didn't realize I looked sad. I told Petra before, but I have trouble with emotions. I just don't care the same way other people do. It's not a bad thing that you two care. You might want to ask someone else about this though. I don't think I'll be very helpful. Dorothea took another breath, though she smiled this time. I guess I am just different from you then, Professor. Well, I'm willing to accept that it's what I need to do, even if I don't like it. Byleth nodded. I hope you never do like it. Killing is unpleasant. Do what you need to, and make sure to survive. I will thank you for admitting you're not good at this sort of thing though, Dorothea said, her smile taking on a hint of humor. It does help to know that it isn't easy for you, just in a different way than it's difficult for me. Byleth didn't entirely get what she meant, but she nodded regardless. I hope this helped. Bernadetta, did you want to ask me anything specific? Huh. No. I fine. Huh? But I thought you wanted to. I don't. Bye. And Bernadetta promptly ran in the other direction, which, well, Byleth had hoped they were moving past that point, but she supposed it would take some more time. Oh dear, there she goes. See you, Professor. Hopefully we can have a more light-hearted chat next time, Dorothea said before she headed out too. Byleth waited until the songstress had left before she glanced at the entrance to her classroom. Did you want to talk to Ferdinand? There was a pause, then the heir to House Aegir entered the room with a slightly sheepish look. I see you have some very strong observational skills, Professor. And here I thought I was completely hidden in the doorway, haha. You weren't. Yes, well, so. How are you today, Professor? I'm fine. How are you? Good. Excellent, really, I actually recently acquired an exquisite tea set and Ferdinand trailed off, seeming to lose track of his thoughts. I think, I understand what you meant before. When you were talking about bandits. Byleth stared at her student, then nodded. Do you want to take a seat? No, I should stand for this, I think. It feels like a topic I should be standing for, isn't it? I mean, it's strange. I still believe there is a difference between the average, ordinary commoner and a bandit. A fundamental difference. Because bandits choose to become thieves when other people, many in similar situations, do not. Okay. He paused. Oh okay. I disagree with you, but I acknowledge that's the viewpoint you hold. I'm not here to argue with you, Ferdinand. I'm here to help, and you look like you need help. Wait, Professor, you don't need to get up, he protested as Byleth stood, but she still got up from her seat and went over to get a chair for him. She set it down in front of her desk, then took her seat again. Please sit down. Ferdinand sat. It felt strange. Like he was a boy again, sitting in front of his father's grand desk, a symbol of his position as the Prime Minister. Then he looked again and it was just his professor, sitting at her usual teaching desk. It felt different. Lonato's rebellion. Byleth just nodded, silent and patient. I don't understand how he could have involved innocents in the way he did. A lord's duty is to protect his people, but he used them. It doesn't matter if they volunteered, he should have told them no. It isn't their place to fight, it's the duty of knights and soldiers. Not untrained commoners given the bare minimum of weapons and armor. His fists clenched in his lap. It is a noble's duty to protect people. They shouldn't drag the innocent into their own personal vendettas. He let so many of his people die, and for what? He should have known his goal was impossible. Not just impossible, completely mad to even attempt. How could he throw his own people away like that? He might as well have set their houses ablaze for all the good he did them. They even called him a good lord. They said he didn't deserve to suffer anymore. His people loved him and he treated them like garbage. How could he do that? All just for his own worthless greed. Ferdinand took a shaky, furious breath. I apologize, Professor. It was unbecoming of me to raise my voice like that. It's okay, Byleth reassured, it happens when people get angry. It's not wrong to be angry at injustice. How many orphans did he leave behind? He likely devastated his entire territory, and I know he had children he essentially abandoned. And for such a meaningless reason too. He unclenched his fists and flexed his fingers, hoping to remove what little stiffness that was there. I don't know how he could be so cruel. People are willing to do horrible things for their families. Byleth pretended not to notice the way Ferdinand flinched. She wasn't exactly pleased to see further evidence for her theory that Ferdinand wasn't just talking about Lonato. In Lonato's case, I think he cared more about the injustice of his son's death than what would happen afterwards. You knew him before, right, Professor? Ferdinand asked. What did you feel, when you had to kill him? Sad, I think, Byleth answered. I was angry because he would have killed Shay, but I think I was sad too. Emotions are complicated. Ferdinand huffed in wry amusement. I am well aware of that fact, Professor. It's strange how varied the heart can be. You can love someone, even idolize them, and yet still feel such genuine horror towards them that he sighed. I am getting off topic. My apologies. You can talk about what you want, I'll be here to listen. Thank you, Professor. I must admit being able to express myself like this has certainly helped. If you ever want to do it again, feel free to ask. It's my job to help my students after all. I'll make sure to remember that, Professor. But I have one more thing to bring up. At the inquisitive tilt of her head, he continued. It was about this month's mission. I did have one suggestion. It may benefit us to keep an eye on stables. It may not be their true intention, but setting a fire there could cause a panic to occur as the horses run wild. That's a good point. I'll recommend a portion of the guard keep watch over the stables then. Thank you for the suggestion. A slight smile returned to Ferdinand's face. You're very welcome, Professor. Anything I can do to help. You are very helpful, Ferdinand. Don't lose that enthusiasm, okay? His smile got even bigger and Byleth ruthlessly squashed the part of her that wondered if she just made a mistake. Thank you for saying so, Professor. Very well, I shall continue to strive to be the very best noble I can be. I will become Lady Edelgard's closest confidant and prove my father wrong. What? Or my name isn't Ferdinand von Aegir. Ahahaha. Ferdinand continued to laugh as he stood and turned on his heel, heading for the doorway full of noble pomp and grandeur. Before pausing halfway there and turning back towards Byleth. Actually, I did have one more question. Do you know how I am like a bee? What? It is a thing Dorothea said to me that's been plaguing my mind. Actually, never mind. This is a puzzle she has given me to unravel, and I shall not ask for aid. Thank you again, Professor. May you have a lovely rest of your day. Okay. Thank you. Byleth watched Ferdinand leave, then sank back in her chair, frowning to herself. How is he like a bee? She tilted her head back, staring up at the ceiling. Ferdinand von Hiver. You don't see that every day, Geralt murmured to himself as he noticed both of his daughters were at the dock overlooking the monastery's pond. Seeing Byleth there wasn't unusual, especially since she'd really taken to fishing at the pond in her downtime, but Shay rarely had the patience to sit still long enough for the hobby. Might as well see what the occasion is. Shay stared into the water, almost glaring at the fish in there as she sat on the dock. The fish that were plentiful, but weren't going near her hook at all. MRGH, I thought fish were supposed to like worms. They do, Byleth replied, sitting beside her sister and keeping her rod far steadier. Then why don't they like my worm? Not sure. Maybe they're just not biting today. Shay looked at her sister, then looked at the bucket beside her sister, which was currently overflowing with a number of herrings, loaches, trout, and even a pike. Then she looked at her own bucket, which currently had a goby and a live crayfish inside it. Byleth normally had a very easy time keeping her face neutral. She was having a surprisingly difficult time at the moment though. Hey kids, Geralt greeted as he came over to his daughters, taking a seat beside Shay with a fishing rod of his own in hand. Oh, hey Dad. What's up? Shay greeted while Byleth simply gave her father a nod of acknowledgement, too focused on fish for the moment. I saw you two down here and decided I should take a break. Hope you don't mind your old man joining you. Nope. The more the merrier. Well, so long as you don't steal all my fish. I don't think you'll need to worry about that. Oh? And wise, Dad, come on, even I know you need to put a hook on the string, she complained. The line, Byleth corrected, which prompted her sister to try to poke her in the side. Byleth, however, simply deflected the attempt with a quick hand before returning to her fishing, prompting a chuckle from her father. Well, if you want to help me out, I wouldn't mind. You know these old hands aren't as dexterous as they used to be. Shay huffed, then glanced at Byleth. Hey why don't you help Dad? You're the master fisherwoman here. Okay, Byleth agreed, pulling her hook in before setting the rod aside and getting up to help her father out. Thanks kid, Gerald said as he pretended not to notice Shay swapping her and Byleth's buckets. It's no trouble, Byleth replied. She tied the hook to the line easily enough, then returned to her place on the dock and cast her line out again before taking a seat. After a second, she glanced at her bucket, then picked out the crayfish inside and set it on her shoulder where the small crustacean settled down surprisingly calmly. Shay snorted at the sight and couldn't stop herself from giggling, which definitely wasn't helping her attempts at fishing. Gerald grinned at the sight, then settled in. Despite Shay's claims, the fish were definitely plentiful and it wasn't long before he had a decently sized bullhead wriggling on his hook. That's just not fair, Shay complained while Byleth made a faintly impressed noise at the sizable catfish. What can I say? I guess experience triumphs over youthful vigor again, Gerald teased. MRGH Shay went back to grumbling, glaring mulishly at the water, while Gerald noticed a flicker of something cross Byleth's face. She was still happy, at least from what he could tell, but there was something under it as her eyes lingered on Shay a little too long. So, hey, how have things been going for you two? Gerald decided to ask after he cast his line back out. About the same I guess. Claude was being all annoying cause he felt left out after the mission we just had. He felt left out because he didn't help against the rebellion. Yeah, I don't know what's up with him, but hey, we're technically working together this month, Shay said as she shrugged her shoulders. Oh, speaking of, apparently the lions are gonna be guarding the vault, in case they try to take any weapons there. That makes sense. Hey, do you know where they might target? Byleth asked as she began to reel something in. Kid, there's so many valuable things here, even I don't know them all. Besides, as the acting knight captain, I'll be too focused on keeping Rhea guarded. A thought occurred there that he decided to voice. Meanwhile, you two should keep an eye out for your house leaders. Huh? Why's that? Shay asked, looking surprised. Just a thought I had. There's a lot of important heirs here this year and they already had someone go after them. They did. The Iron King bandits, remember? Call it a hunch, but it seems too coincidental that they were in the right place at the right time to go after the prince, princess, and, whatever the Regan's kid title would be, Gerald explained. Odds are, they were hired for the job and given details on where they were. And if we consider that, we should also consider that this new bunch might be after them too. I dunno, that sounds pretty far-fetched, Shay replied. Not everything's connected, you know. True, it might be paranoia, but I might also be right. Either way, I'd make sure to tell those brats to keep an eye out for themselves. Gerald paused, noticing that the fish managed to slip out of Byleth's line as he said that. Hey, something up? Shay asked. You're being quieter than usual. Everything is okay. Yeah, Gerald didn't believe that for a second. Come on kid, we won't be able to help if you don't tell us. In the mission, I had to use that power, Byleth finally responded. Wait, really? Is that how you saved Ingrid? Shay asked, completely surprised. Wow, that power of yours really is amazing. Must be weighing on you though. Even if you managed to stop it, you still had to experience it, Gerald sympathized, as Byleth began to shift in place. That wasn't the only time I used it that day. Huh? Who else did you save? Shay asked, before Byleth silently looked at her. Oh. What happened? Gerald asked, feeling a faint sense of dread. Lonato, he stabbed Shay. I wanted to talk to him, but, when I saw that, I didn't care. Byleth's grip tightened on her fishing pole. Her power is that strong, Arvel muttered, before huffing in the back of Shay's mind. Well, at least she is using it for a good cause. I suppose there's at least a use for it if it can keep you safe, partner. Well, hey, Arvel approves, in their own weird way, Shay said, smiling over at her sister, so it sounds to me like you did good. Shay, you would have died, Byleth stated. Yeah, and that's kind of uncomfortable to hear about, but you saved me. Everything worked out fine, right? It did this time, but what about next time? What if I'm not there to save you when something happens? Shay frowned. I'm not weak, I don't need you to save me all the time. I know. Byleth shouted, catching the two off guard. I know you're strong, but... Almost imperceptibly, Byleth began to shake. Kid, are you afraid of something happening to her? Geralt asked, mostly concerned but also kind of amazed. He never thought, well, she was expressing herself more often. Really? You're actually scared for me. Shay, meanwhile, didn't know what to say to that at all. You know I can handle myself, right? I saw you get stabbed through the chest, Shay. Yeah, but I would have been fine, she insisted, interrupting her sister, it's not the first time. You're not invincible, Shay. I know I'm not, but I'm stronger than you think I am. I know how strong you are. Shay felt a frown coming to her face as Arvel made a noise of realization. So she does think you're weak. Weaker than her, at least. She did take your fight against Lonato. You were the one handling things there, and she did decide to kill him simply because she was angry. Would you stop? Shay snapped, before pausing when she saw Byleth blink. Not you, no, you know what, you need to stop too. I'm not weaker than you and I don't need to be protected. Byleth trembled, and Shay felt her own anger falter at the sight before her sister suddenly glared at her. Yes, you do. You've always been too reckless. Why did you go running off into the fog? Did you really want to fight Lonato that badly? Hey, I went in because I was trying to keep Em safe. So it's fine when you do it then? Yes. It is. Because I'm strong. And you were the one who killed him. I could have beat him and kept Ash from losing his dad. Byleth outright scowled, something that sent a strange sense of alarm through Geralt as he started to think he really should intercede here. All right, come on girls, you were losing, Byleth bluntly stated. He was an armored paladin with years of experience and a weapon with a much larger reach than you could have overcome. He would have kept you at bay until a hit connected or until he wore you down and then he would have killed you. Shay stiffened, affronted, then scowled right back. I still could have beat him. I could have cut his head off in my first move and the only reason I didn't is because I didn't want to. Because he was my friend's dad and what would have happened afterward? The knights would have executed him. He was a dead man already, all you did was put yourself in danger. Shay opened her mouth, about to interrupt, when she suddenly felt a hand on her head, startling her out of her anger. Across from her, Byleth was reacting much the same as Geralt placed his hands on both his daughters' heads. The pair stared at each other for a moment, before they both looked up at their dad, who was looking back at them with a faint expression of concern. All right. Let's take this down a notch before anyone says something they'll regret, okay? I don't need to be babied, Shay complained, though she didn't make any motion to brush her father off. I know you don't. Neither of you do. But a dad worries, you know. He let out a sigh, before smiling down at the two of them. I don't think I've seen you two get that heated before. Usually when you argue, it's Shay insisting on something while you just give one-word responses, kid. This was different, Byleth grumbled, ducking her head to glare at the dock. I noticed. You've gotten a lot more expressive over the years. He glanced at Shay. And you've gotten a lot stronger too. Still reckless though. Hey, I said. I know you went to rescue your friend. I'm not going to fault you for that. Just try to keep yourself safe, okay? You two are supposed to outlive me, not the other way around. MMPH. Don't act like you're going to keel over any day now, Shay grumbled. Please don't, Byleth agreed, glancing up at her father again with a small look of concern. Okay, no jokes about my mortality, I get it. But in exchange, I want you two to put this aside, if you can. It's a shame what happened to Lonato. I can't pretend I don't understand where he's coming from, but he made some very bad choices in how he decided to handle his grief. It's rough, but we can't change what happened. Could we? Shay asked, glancing at Byleth. We cannot, Suthis responded, her voice echoing in Byleth's mind. The point to change that man's fate has long passed. You would be but a child again should you make the attempt, assuming such a thing would not simply destroy you completely and utterly. Suthis says it isn't possible, Byleth reported, prompting a scoff from Arvel. How convenient. Useful when she wishes to be, yet useless when you make a simple request. Shay rolled her eyes, then tried to grin at her sister. Arvel's being a pain. Rude. All I'm doing is being a good partner and staying by your side, the Not Ghost protested. Why not ask her why it's so impossible? Ugh, fine. So Shay asked, and Byleth replied back with what Suthis told her. Yeah, you're not doing that, Geralt immediately said. What a horrific power, Arvel muttered, and Shay, felt a part of herself kind of agree. The idea that it could alter things that much, or even kill Byleth just by using it. Okay, so no changing history that much. Saving someone's life, sure. Doing that, no. I don't think I can anyway, Byleth replied, shrugging. I'm pretty sure my changes are limited to the day they happen. That is good to know, Arvel noted while Shay just sighed, scratching at her head. Right, this is all starting to give me a headache. Hey, you wanna just spar a bit? Might help. Byleth considered matters, then nodded. Sure, that works. Before remembering something important. Oh, yeah, what should I do for this guy? She pointed to the crayfish still resting on her shoulder, which didn't seem to have been bothered by any of the arguing at all. Is that thing even alive? Shay asked, reaching over to poke at the crustacean and yelping when it pinched her finger instead. Ow. Jerk. Seems alive to me. Well, I'm pretty sure people have bowls if they want to keep fish, Geralt suggested. Speaking of, we should probably take your catches in if we don't want them to rot. Oh yeah. Great point, Dad. After all, I've gotta show the fish keeper just how much I caught. Shay said, her grin returning full force as she picked up the bucket Byleth had filled with fish. Byleth stared as Shay started heading off, before lifting her fishing rod. No trying to hook, trip, or hit your sister, Geralt reprimanded. Byleth lowered the fishing rod, before deciding to just content herself with her new crayfish, which was clearly better than any of the fish Shay stole from her. She may have lost the battle, but Byleth won a friend, and that was what truly mattered. Chapter 43, Interlude, Sage Advice. The monastery was a quiet place at night. In the dark, the ancient structure had a strange, somber quality to it. It was not empty of life, for there were still those who would wander even in the nighttime, but it was quiet, and silence had a way of making even the liveliest of locations feel melancholy. The town beneath Garreg Mach didn't have that same presence, but it was still quieter than it would be in the daytime, and it was far less guarded than the monastery itself. In other words, it was quite useful for those seeking to have clandestine meetings. What do you think? The first person there asked the second to arrive, staring up at the monastery in the distance. It was still in sight from their place at the town's outskirts, appearing small, yet somehow looming over them all the same. Garreg Mach is an impressive sight, the second individual remarked, their voice distorted by the white mask they wore, resembling a human face marked by flames. It fit to their helmet, guarding their face from sight. I despise what it stands for though. The first person scoffed, resting her hand on her own mask. Hers resembled a bird, much like those worn by those called dark bishops, though it was deep crimson instead of a metallic black. Her robes were black and lined with golden markings, vestments of a faith she cared little for. Your standards for impressive are quite lacking. The world once had 1,000 sights more majestic before it was stolen away by the abominations. But then, why should you care? You have little reason to. I have reasons of my own to oppose the Nabateans. The history you speak of does not matter to me. The Flame Emperor regarded her contact with open distrust. You have a great deal of gall to summon me like this. Yet you came when called, so it's not really arrogant of me, now is it? Bias waved a hand, dismissing her own words. Forget it. I'm not interested in playing power games with a child. I get enough of that with Kronia. You are being indiscreet. Who is here to listen? I took precautions, Flame Emperor. I will know if there are issues. Very well. Then talk. Bias sighed, not quite slumping. I swear, I wasn't nearly this bad when I was young. I came here to talk you about your little assassination plot you're trying to pull off. I must say, it was a tad sloppy, but it worked. It's certainly impressive how much these knights will drop almost everything when it comes to their precious archbishop. Get to the point. Quite the impatient one, aren't you? Very well. We have a shared interest, do we not? While we would certainly love it if you did eliminate the leader of the abominations, revealing the truth of Ceroz's tomb certainly seems worthwhile. And you want to be involved with my plans. As I said, mutual interest. Really, it's like you're paying me back for not ousting you to the beasts. Do not threaten me. I am simply stating the facts, Bias said with a small titter of laughter, but if you wish for a sign of my goodwill, I could offer weapons and armor, perhaps to that Death Knight of yours. You know of my men, the Flame Emperor stated as they regarded Bias. They knew little about their contact, but what they did know was that she carried more authority than Emily, and that made her dangerous. Of course. Though you may not have kept contact, we have our own sources. The Flame Emperor regarded the infiltrator with annoyance. It is your people who broke contact first. Am I to arrange my plans based on what I think you may desire? For now, no. What you can do, however, is lend us your knight. You need the Death Knight's aid? Why? He is a powerful force that would be useful for our purposes. Should any of the abominations ilk take notice of our presence and attempt to intervene, he would be a boon in removing them. And why would I aid you in this way? Regardless of the weaponry you offer, I see no reason to aid you. It does show a continued willingness on your part to aid our cause. We do share the common goal of removing the abominations from power, do we not? And you know well enough that my people can offer much to you. The Flame Emperor silently regarded Bias for a few moments, then scoffed. The fact that you are negotiating with me rather than ordering it be done shows how much your position has weakened. Thales truly was the pillar supporting your enterprise, was he not? I won't disagree with that. We have more than one pillar though. Even if he bore much of the weight, there is enough support that we may build more to keep things stable. That is not how it works. A load-bearing pillar cannot be easily replaced, not without damage, and whatever other pillars you have, they cannot move into his place without disrupting their own. It's how Aegir was able to push you out without Thales to keep him cowed. She tilted her head. You work best in obscurity, do you not? If there are those willing to support you, then you grow more bold, but you cannot touch Aegir because of how protected in public he is. He knows too much, but you cannot strike at him without risking discovery and death. And because he is in the way, you cannot get to me. Am I incorrect? Bias shrugged. You're right on all counts. You look surprised. Or as much as you can be in that helmet of yours. Still, you're correct. Thales wanted you as a pet instead of a mere beast, domesticated and willing to hunt down our prey, but Mycen let you slip your leash. I'm not surprised to see you turn feral. Annoyed, but not surprised. The issue is that I've been sent to re-establish contact, to see if you are willing to accept a new caller. Failing that, well, Solon has his ideas of how things should go. I have my own. All I will say is that loaning your knight will make things easier for us all. Solon. Tell me about him. Bias paused. Is that a condition for gaining the use of your knight? The Death Knight is one of mine, but he is willful. I make no guarantees that he will be as helpful as you desire. but I will aid you if you are willing to share information. I know of Thales, and I recall the names Solon and Mycen. So, tell me about them. Ah, of course, they were both involved in the Hegemon project, Bias muttered, thinking, while the Flame Emperor's armor hid any reaction she may have had. They are the sages of darkness and thunder, leaders of our people, in a sense. Solon is one of our people's greatest scientists, having fathomed greater depths of darkness than any other still living, and Mycen is, well, he's decent enough, I guess. Overly focused on his own personal projects at times, to the point that he's really allowed things to slip in Adrestia, but you're aware of that part, of course. Otherwise, he is capable and competent, if better as an agent than a leader. Who are the other sages? I feel like you should be owing me for each of these questions I answer. Consider each one answered a mission you may use the Death Knight on. Bias made a faintly pleased noise there. Useful, very well. Among the sages, there are those greater and those lesser. Light and dark hold the greatest power, and the lesser elements support them. As such, there is Elin, the sage of Earth, who followed Thales and acted as his guard. He was not there when Thales died, so you can imagine his current anguish. Thales himself was the Sage of Light, but that matters little now. Another deceased member of our order was the Sage of Wind, and another living member, Cleobulus, is Sage of Water. I myself am the Sage of Fire. Your order has 2 sages at the monastery then. That seems dangerous. Perhaps. Solon has plans, and I am meant to guard him. We do not want another sage of great importance to be lost to us. Or, worse, to fall into enemy hands. I see. One final question then. That will be a third mission we are allowed to use the Death Knight on then, yes. Yes. Is Shay one of you? Bias blinked beneath her mask. That girl again, she is Agar then, yes. I do not know her purpose here though, and I would prefer not to speculate. I see. She is of Agartha then. If you want to repeat what I said, sure. And as I said, I don't know why she's here. Cronia seems interested in her, which doesn't say much if anything good about Shay. She shrugged. Figure it out on your own if you're so curious. She isn't my problem. I would think one of your own people turning up in an unexpected place would be your problem. Well, it's not. Unless she becomes directly relevant to me, I'm not interested. Left unsaid was the interest that Solon had taken in the strange young Agar then. Bias had no reason to tell the Flame Emperor everything, after all. Fine. You have 3 missions you may enlist the aid of the Death Knight for. Inform me of what they are beforehand or the deal is off. Adding conditions after the fact? My, Thales really did train you well. She smirked, because even with how much the Flame Emperor's armor hid, there was no mistaking the flash of anger there. I'll make sure to report that you're perfectly willing to work with us going forward. Say what you want. But know that there is no partnership between us. This was a transaction. Nothing more. Any arrangements made from this point onward will be temporary. But she was willing to make such arrangements, and that was good enough for Bias. Of course, Your Majesty. She bowed, the gesture filled with mockery, before straightening. Have a good night now. Little girls shouldn't be out after dark like this. Edelgard scowled beneath her helm as the monster in front of her vanished, but she let it be. Those who slither in the dark did have their uses, even if she would dismantle them in time just as she would the church. Which brought her back to the thought of Shay. Having it confirmed that the younger Eisner was indeed an Agar then did feel like something of a relief, in a strange way. She didn't know the girl's purpose here, but she knew her origins, and that could be worked on. Especially with the confirmation that she wasn't part of the same faction as Bias and Solon. The fact that those who slither even had factions was a fascinating revelation. The idea that they were not one whole, but a set of groups who may have their own motivations and desires, along with the confirmation that not one but 2 of their leaders were deceased, it opened up opportunities. Especially if the faction Shay belonged to happened to oppose Solon's. The Flame Emperor turned and made her way back to where she would change from her disguise once more before returning to the monastery, her mind still awhirl with thoughts and considerations. Most significantly, the thought that she knew, specifically, who among the Agarthans had headed the project that mutilated her and killed her siblings. Edelgard was not someone who focused on vengeance. It was a distraction and a danger, a detriment to creating a better Fodlan. Even still, it was good to know who among her enemies could not be allowed to live. Chapter 44, Honest Conversation. Shay huffed to herself as she walked around the monastery, no real destination in mind while she was lost in her thoughts. It had been a day since the incident at the dock, so she had been able to think some more, and while she was able to see where Byleth was coming from. "I'm not a child," Shay muttered, idly kicking a rock that was in her path. "That sister of yours can be quite cruel," Arvel commented, making Shay frown. "Honestly, she's probably just afraid to admit you're the stronger fighter. Even if I am, we're supposed to be stronger together." She muttered again, before deciding to look around to see where she was and realizing she wound up in the tea gardens. Well, not the worst place to wander to. That moronic Claude. Blinking as she heard a rather angry-sounding voice, Shay looked over to see Lysithea walking nearby, a scowl on her face. "Everything okay?" Shay asked, getting Lysithea to turn her glare towards her. "What do you want?" Just wanted to see if you were okay, you seem kinda pissed." At her words, Lysithea huffed. "Claude is being an idiot as usual. First he acts like it's his business when I go to sleep, and now he makes fun of me for my suggestion on where the perpetrators might strike." "He did?" "Yes. I suggested they might go for the library, and all he had to say was, 'What, are they too busy to just check them out?' Even if he didn't like what I said, he didn't have to mock me like I'm some child." "Yeah, Claude tends to default to mocking," Shay agreed as she rubbed the back of her head. "I mean, I don't really hang out at the library, but there's some pretty important books in there, right?" "Yes. There are many important magical tomes and historical documents. And it's not merely a matter of intruders stealing them, they might try to destroy them all. And let me guess, he didn't let you explain that." Before I could, he was already dismissing Raphael's idea of them going for the food storages. With that said, she pouted. Of course, he made no attempt to treat him like a child. "Yeah, that definitely sounds rough. I get what you're going through, but I decided to start treating me like I need to be babied after the mission we just had." "Really? You? Aren't you a professional mercenary? A strong one at that. Hell, I've been doing this since I was younger than you. And yet you also treat me like a child." "Ah, yeah, I can see why the things I said came off like that. Sorry about that." "Humph, just make sure not to do so again. Though I gotta say, even if you are young, you put in a lot of effort. You're already way better than me with dark magic from what I've seen of you training. You're a dark mage." "Yeah? Did I not tell you? I know how to cast a few spells." "Who taught you?" "No one really, just came to me naturally, I guess. Maybe my birth parents were also dark mages, but I don't really remember anything about them." "Is that so?" Lysithea murmured, already assuming things about how Shay got these powers. "Yup. Hey, actually, since we're talking about it, mind teaching me about magic? Might be nice having a mentor." "You want me as a mentor?" Lysithea asked, already sounding pleased at the idea. "Yeah, since we're both being treated like kids, we might as well work together to show them." "Humph, well, if I have time in between my studies, I suppose I could help you out. Though don't think I'll go easy on you." "I'd never dream of it," Shay said with a grin. "Hey, if you're not busy right now, why don't we get something to eat before starting?" "Well, I was already planning on getting something to eat. So we might as well eat together if you're hungry." "Great. Let's go." Grinning, Shay led the way. Shay, you're heading to the dormitories." Keeping her grin, Shay let Lysithea lead the way. Byleth tried her best to keep her mind focused on other things while she made her way to the audience chambers to talk with Rhea. She still didn't particularly like the Archbishop, but she still had a job to do. And the best way to know what to protect was to ask the one being targeted. "Hello there, child. Have you been well?" Rhea asked when Byleth approached her, a gentle smile on her face. "I am, yes," Byleth answered as she glanced around. Is Seath busy? Yes, he had some business to attend to. Rhea said. That is to say, he is preparing things for his sister's birthday. It's Flane's birthday. Not yet, she was born on Saint Cethlean Day. It is quite the blessing for young Flane. Good to know. She'd have to get her something. Flane wasn't technically a student, but it would probably make the girl happy to get a present. Quite, though I do hope you didn't come here just to learn about her birthday. No, I wanted to ask about this month's mission. Oh? Are you worried for me? Geralt will be in charge of your protection, you'll be safe, Byleth said, not wanting to admit that she wasn't worried. What I wanted to ask is if there was anything in the monastery you would want protected. Oh. That seemed to actually surprise her. There is a chance the perpetrators might have a secondary mission when they come. My class is having trouble deciding what to protect, so I wanted to know what you would want to protect. Ah, I see. Then you believe this assassin Aden attempt may be a cover for another purpose. Byleth shrugged. I said they might have a secondary mission. They might still be coming to kill you, but if most of the monastery's security is focused on you, it leaves other areas vulnerable. Of course, I can understand your rationale. If I may offer a suggestion then, I would think the Holy Mausoleum would be a place of importance to protect. And, what's that? Rhea seemed faintly amused by the question, her smile twitching in apparent humor. The Holy Mausoleum is the resting place of Saint Siros. Her remains are interred there, and it would be a significant blasphemy were they to be disturbed. That sounded really stupid. Did you wish to say something, child? Byleth paused. Something of her skepticism must have shown, which was strange. She thought she was keeping her face as neutral as it usually was. I don't understand why they would want a corpse. The body of Saint Siros is no mere corpse, Rhea gently chided. Her remains are held sacred by the faith, for she was the first to spread the word of the goddess to the people of Fodlan. Right, she killed Nemesis and founded the Empire. Rhea blinked. Oh, I did not realize you already knew of that story. I heard it years ago. Nemesis was an evil tyrant, Siros fought him with her saints, then she made the Empire and the Church afterwards. Heh. That is not incorrect, though it is a somewhat simplified version of the tale. Regardless, that is my suggestion. You may accept or ignore it as you choose. You know you're my employer, right? You could just order me to guard that place if you think it's important. Rhea's ever-present smile took on a sad quality that made Byleth vaguely uncomfortable. I realize, yet I suppose I was hoping you could look past my position, child. It is rare that I am able to speak to anyone as simply Rhea, instead of as the Archbishop. I was here on business. I don't think treating you as Rhea is really appropriate. She sighed. That is true. My apologies. Perhaps I am being too familiar. You are Geralt's kin, so I feel as though we may have a connection. Though, perhaps I am being presumptuous. It was strange how tense Byleth felt. She couldn't help thinking back to that day, years ago, when she and Shay asked their father about the Knights of Siros and he told them everything. May I ask if Geralt ever spoke of me? Rhea inquired, and Byleth had the strangest feeling as she stared at the woman who helped deliver her as a baby. And who might have killed her mother. Fear was a new emotion to her. A strange, chilly sensation that hit when she thought of Shay or her father dying. This new emotion was different though. Like a creeping sensation along her back, a strange dread at being in this woman's presence. He did. All good things, I hope. Rhea said, and her smile was almost painfully hopeful, like she really did want Byleth's father to have a good opinion of her. And it almost hurt to see it fade at Byleth's lack of response. Perhaps not then. I suppose I cannot blame him. My position oft requires a certain sternness of word and action to maintain the sanctity of the faith. It can be frightening for some, though I do hope I have not given you cause to fear me, child. She had. Maybe not directly, but everything Byleth knew made the woman in front of her feel like someone she couldn't trust. Not for a second. But she wasn't about to say that. You haven't. I am glad. And she genuinely looked it. May I ask, did he ever tell you of our first meeting? He did. He was a mercenary, he was hired to help protect you, and he nearly died doing it. That is all true, Rhea confirmed. Gerald saved my life. He threw himself into harm's way to save me from death. He was a very brave young man. Very young at the time, in fact. He could not even grow a full beard back then. The Archbishop smiled, full of fondness and good humor, and Byleth felt all the more uncomfortable for it. I imagine then that he told you of how he joined the Knights of Syros. Yes. Ah, of course, I did think he would, given you said he told you. I digress. I seem to be talking in circles now. I do enjoy speaking with you though. Byleth didn't know what to say to that. Part of her wanted to ask why. Another part wanted to know what Rhea did all those years ago, what happened to her mother, everything. But the largest part just wanted to leave. Is that all then, Lady Rhea? I suppose it is. My apologies if I have made you uncomfortable, child. Was it that obvious? I do hope you might be willing to visit again. Perhaps not for business, but simply to chat. No, thank you. I'm busy, Byleth replied, before turning and walking away as fast as she could without looking like she was running from the Archbishop and that strangely hurt look she had when Byleth refused her. And that is all for today, class, Hanneman concluded, turning away from the blackboard and towards his students. Remember to study hard, as we will be having a test at the end of the week. Shay frowned at her notes. She was pretty sure she knew enough about the leadership skills of previous Phaergon generals, but maybe she should stop by the library for once. But then she might run into that Dimash guy again and he still felt off to her. It is an interesting sensation, don't you think? Arvel asked as she started packing her stuff away, not exactly familiar, per se, but, oh. Never mind, it looks like we can't converse at the moment. Huh. Shay glanced up at Arvel, then paused when she saw Sylvain instead. Hey there. Saw me coming, huh? Something like that. What's up? What? I can come over and chat with a cute classmate. Oh, it was one of those conversations. Nope, not really. I've got better things to do than be flirted at. Ah, that's not really why I wanted to talk. I mean, sure, I wouldn't mind flirting if you were up for it. I'm not, Shay replied, slinging her satchel of school supplies over her shoulder, so see ya. No, hold on, I actually did want to talk, Sylvain quickly said, prompting a sigh from his classmate. Okay, I guess I'm not doing anything, so I'm up to hear whatever it is. What's up? Well, maybe we could find somewhere more private to chat. Sylvain, come on. I'm serious. I don't want to talk about something you might find uncomfortable for other people to hear. At her skeptical look, he continued. It's about you and your sister. Oh. That. She grimaced. I guess our argument was kind of, in the open. Yeah, it was kind of hard not to notice, though I don't think anyone listened in. Or at least was close enough to listen in on. Did you try to listen in? Hey, I'm not that bad, he complained. Besides, argument aside, I just noticed things seemed to be tense between you two. I guess I just wanted to make sure everything was okay. Yeah, things are fine, mostly. Shay sighed. Yeah, maybe we should go somewhere less open to talk about this. Though if you invite me to a bedroom, I'm gonna deck you. Hey, message received. And moments later, the two settled in a corner of the monastery's halls, far from most of the foot traffic. Alright, talk to me. Are things really so bad you decided you need to get involved? Shay asked, leaning against the wall as Sylvain stood beside her. I'd say it's more that I want to keep things from getting that bad. I kind of have experience with this sort of thing. I have an older brother and, well, he was born without a crest. Huh. Okay. He sighed, smiling wryly. Alright, I guess it's not too obvious since you two grew up as mercenaries. See, the way it goes in the nobility in Faerghus is that the heir needs to have a crest. I'm sure you've heard the stories, how we're descended from the 10 elites and how we all have relics that react to crests. You need a crest to wield them and each one is worth 1,000 men, or so the stories go. Crests are everything to nobles. It's proof the goddess favors us, Or so people say. And if you're born without a crest, well, you're not the favorite. Okay? So, your brother was born without a crest, and then you were born with one. Exactly. Though, that's not all of it. After Miklon, my brother, lost his mother, our father married specifically to make me. He needed an heir with a crest, and the instant I was born, Miklon lost what should have been his. And he hated me for it. Shay frowned. That's not fair at all. You didn't ask to be born with a crest. You didn't ask to be born at all. True enough, but I was. And, well, he chuckled without any humor in it. He made sure I knew how much he hated me. Tried to kill me a few times, even. All because I had a crest and he didn't. Hold on, you can't seriously think that's what's going on between me and Byleth. It's not? So you can tell me you never felt resentful towards her because of her crest. She scowled in the face of his skepticism. It's not that. I'm mad that she's acting like I need protection. So you never once thought she had an unfair advantage? That you would have been better off if she didn't have a crest? I never thought I would be better off. Look, sure, it felt weird when I learned she had one, but I didn't hate her for it. And that's good. Sylvain insisted, I don't want you to hate her. I just don't want things to turn out like they did with me. They're not going to. I don't hate Byleth. I'm just upset that she wants to baby me. It's not the same as what happened to you. Shay let out a breath, relaxing some of the tension that built up in her. I just want her to know I'm as strong as her. Stronger, murmured Arvel, and Shay felt a flash of annoyance at the sound of their voice. All right. I won't keep arguing that. I feel like it's unfair to you. I'm not weak, Sylvain. You don't need to protect me either. Heh. Fair enough. He slouched against the wall and let out another sigh. Shay settled next to him after a second, content to stare at the opposite wall. What do you think of Byleth anyway? Well, if I'm going to be honest, my first thought is that she's completely gorgeous and probably has the third biggest set of breasts I've ever seen. Wow, you really are a pig. Ouch. Hitting me right in the heart there, Shay. I could hit you for real if you want. She paused. Third biggest. Yup. Professor Manuela's are bigger, but she's still the second biggest. The absolute biggest goes to the court mage back in Faerghus, this lady named Cornelia. Now those things are absolutely massive. Praise the goddess for low-cut dresses and the ladies who like them. I really feel like I should deck you on principle now. If you do, just don't aim for my face. It's my only redeeming quality. He grinned as Shay laughed at his bad joke, before he settled back again. And, if I'm continuing to be honest, I've gotta say, I'm kind of jealous of her. Shay glanced up at him. You are? Yup. See, for us nobles, having a crest means that's all anyone is ever going to value us for. We're the subject of envy and desire because of the blood we have, and those of us lucky enough to be born with one immediately become valuable. I was tested at birth to make sure I had one, and that was all I needed to become the heir. And now, all I have waiting for me is a future as a stud horse, producing enough crested babies to be the next generation of Gautier lords keeping the wheels of society turning. Why do you think I never stick with the women I flirt with? It's because they all want the same thing, wealth and status from a man of good breeding. For how vaunted my position is, I was born without any freedom. Meanwhile, your sister got to live the free life of a mercenary. Nobody pretended to like her, nobody demanded she pick a spouse to carry on the line, no one had any expectations of her at all. She didn't even know she had a crest until she came here. How lucky is that? She gets all of the benefits and none of the downsides. What else is that but unfair? He laughed again, though it was darker this time. Uglier, almost. It feels like she has an unpaid debt, getting to live the easy life like that. Maybe someone ought to collect on it. After a second, Sylvain chuckled. Ah, never mind. Hope I didn't scare you there, Shay. Most ladies like a dark and brooding noble. He glanced at her, then felt his body tense on instinct at the look Shay was giving him. There was no smile on her face. No hint of humor, but no hint of concern either. Her eyes were narrowed as she stared up to him, and he felt himself back up, only to hit the wall. And she moved closer to him. Despite the height difference between them, he felt himself staring up at her as she slammed her hand into the wall beside his head, glaring straight into his eyes. There was a fiery orange gleam in there that he hadn't seen before and white markings down her scowling face. "I like you, Sylvain," she said. Her tone implied the opposite. "Don't pile your self-pitying bullshit on me or my sister. And if you ever threaten Byleth again, I'll kill you." She pushed off the wall and stalked away, her hair still glowing that fiery orange. Sylvain watched her go, then look at the blackened hole beside his head in the vague shape of a hand. Despite being solid stone, it reeked of rot. He felt a nervous laugh bubble up as he realized his legs were bent and barely supporting him. Ha, well, so much for an honest conversation. "Professor, can I ask why you seem so discomfited lately?" Edelgard inquired, directing the question towards her professor across the tea table. Byleth paused, before setting down her teacup. Do I seem especially discomfited?" "You do. You've been on edge." "I have good reason to be. People might be trying to assassinate the Archbishop." Edelgard raised an eyebrow. "I suppose that is a decent reason. I believe there may be more to it though. We should focus on our mission for the month. I've been investigating likely points of attack for infiltrators and I believe it would be good to spread our patrols out to those areas." "I understand completely, and I would appreciate it if we could discuss these matters further. Perhaps during class time and not leisure time." Byleth blinked, then glanced at the tea table with all its snacks and such. "Right, that is a good point. I don't really want to talk about my discomfort though." "Discomfort, Professor?" "Right, thank you." Edelgard decided to take a gamble. "Is it about Shay?" "Huh? Oh, I hope not. I was hoping things were better between us. Did she say there were problems?" The princess shook her head. "I have not had cause to speak with her recently. I presume this issue relates to our previous mission though." "Yeah. We argued about it. I felt scared for the first time because I saw her nearly get hurt." "You did? I suppose that makes two emotions that you can feel strongly now." Edelgard mused as she sipped her tea, Fresvelg blend this time. "Forgive me if this sounds rude, but has she not been in dangerous situations before as a mercenary?" "She has, but this time was different." She let down her guard. "If I was just a bit slower, he would have stabbed her through the chest." Byleth said, unable to get the image of Shay bleeding out of her head. "I see. Does that mean you don't want her to participate in combat then?" "No, I just don't want her to be reckless anymore," Byleth muttered. "I suppose I can understand that. To lose one's family is tragic." Sorry," Byleth apologized as she remembered what happened to Edelgard. "No need to apologize, Professor. We all have our own fears, but I believe they can be used as a reminder to not allow anything like that to happen again. Or ever happen, in this case. If I can ask, what happened to you?" "That is a rather vague question, Professor. What exactly do you mean?" "This is just my guess, but whatever happened to you seems to motivate you greatly, but if it was just that sickness, you would be more focused on learning about healing and medicines, and not trying to grow stronger. You are quite perceptive, Professor." "I have to be, with how reckless Shay is." Setting her teacup down, Edelgard flicked her wrist, seemingly giving out a signal as some nearby bushes rustled, telling Byleth that Hubert left. "Before I begin, I must say, there really is a strange aura about you. It makes me feel as if I can really trust you." "I'll take that as a good thing." "You should. Now, you know what happened to my siblings, correct?" At Byleth's nod, Edelgard took a sip of her tea to calm her nerves. "Before I tell you, you must swear to not tell another soul." "I swear," Byleth said with no hesitation. Your honesty can be quite refreshing, Professor." "If I am also being honest, then that story is just a cover, meant to hide what really happened. My family was experimented on. There were those who wished to gain something from us, and it cost my siblings their lives." "Oh." Byleth wasn't sure what to say. "While I would prefer not to go into details, there was a reason I alone survived, and was named the heir of the empire. The future of the empire, of everything, depends on me, Edelgard said, resolute as she stared at Byleth. I see. So that's why you're always appraising me. For the future you want to make. I really should not be surprised by how perceptive you are. Perhaps. Still, if I can help you find a better future, even if it's only as a teacher, then I will. Thank you, my teacher. Chapter 45, The Youngest Dragon. Flayn was having a very interesting year at the monastery. To be specific, it was her first year there, but it was still exciting. Sure, her father might not have let her join as a student, but being able to interact with all the students was ever the delight, even more so when the mysterious band of mercenaries arrived. She didn't know much about them, but Lady Rhea seemed to trust them, even if her father didn't, so they were probably nice people. And the daughters of the leader were quite the duo, be it saving the house leaders, causing quite the stir at the mock battle, or just the general shenanigans at the academy. They quickly became the talk of the town as it were. And while she herself had yet to meet the younger sibling, the elder was ever so much a delight. It was quite amusing seeing her seem so surprised that Flayn and Seath were related, even if it was just the slight widening of her eyes. It wasn't the first time someone got the wrong idea, especially with how stern her father was. It was a shame she was unable to attend the academy as a student, as it seemed quite fun with the two of them. Perhaps she'd have a chance next year, provided the elder remained as a teacher anyways. Though, as she thought this, she saw the younger Eisner sister sitting together with Leonie in the dining hall, the former glaring at the book in her hands. With a smile, she approached the two. Greetings, you must be Shay Eisner, Flayn greeted with a curtsy, catching Shay off guard as she looked up from her book. Oh, hi. Shay said back, seemingly unsure if she should get up to curtsy as well. Leonie, is this one of your classmates? Seriously? You don't know who Seath's sister is? Oh, she's Seath's dash. She paused, then looked at Flayn, before glancing back at Leonie. Are you sure? Pretty sure you're the last person who should be surprised at how different siblings can be. Shay raised a finger, thought for a second, then lowered it. Yeah, okay, that's fair. It's just, Seath is really tall and harsh looking, and this girl's small and soft, like one of those plush things. She paused, then glanced at Flayn, who was not small and soft and was frowning at her in response. Hey, so what's your name anyway? My name is Flayn, and I am neither small nor soft, Flayn replied quite firmly. Shay stood up from the table, showing that she was indeed much taller than Flayn and prompting a bigger frown from the shorter girl. I don't think you can argue with me on the small part, you're pretty short, and you look really soft. I probably can't test that part though, not without Seath getting really mad. How were you planning to test softness? Leonie asked with a raised eyebrow. Pinch her cheeks, duh. I firmly request you do not do that, Flayn firmly requested. Yeah, okay. So did you need something? Well, I came to say hello, but you have been quite rude. Oh. Sorry, that's my bad, I wasn't thinking. Probably should, I just talked with Lysithea about not treating her like a kid, okay. Let's start from the top again. Shay grinned, then tried her own attempt at a curtsy. It didn't really look right, but she gave it a try. Hi there. My name is Shay Eisner, also known as the Violet Demon, daughter of Geralt the Blade Breaker and sister to Byleth the Ashen Dragon. Flayn's frown turned to a bright smile at Shay's full, proper introduction and curtsied in turn. Hello Shay. My name is Flayn, sister of Seath the Grouchy Chamberlain. It is a pleasure to meet you. PFF, is his title really, the Grouchy Chamberlain? Shay asked, grinning. It is what people call him, Flayn replied, acting innocent, though her own smile showed her humor. I have also heard him called, the stern watchman of the monastery, and, sour, doer Seath. Left unsaid was how it was a certain aunt of hers that happened to call him the latter. This may be strange to ask, but your sister is not an actual dragon, correct? Pretty sure she's not. She's just good at fire magic and I wanted her to have a cool title like mine. She doesn't like being called a demon, so I figured calling her a dragon would be good. Dragons and demons are kind of opposites, right? What? How are they opposites? Leonie asked while Flayn just nodded. That makes perfect sense. Leonie blinked. It does. Shay, meanwhile, grinned wider. Hell yeah it does. Heh, glad someone else recognizes my genius. You're pretty cool, Flayn. I am. Ah, well thank you for saying so. Yeah, no problem. Hey, so are you a student here? You've got the uniform, kind of, but it looks different. Ah, well, I am not officially a student, Flayn admitted. I wish to attend, but my brother did not want me to join any of the classes this year. Ah, but I will most definitely be joining next year. Alright. Then I'll look forward to seeing you then. Shay, we only attend the academy for a year, Leonie pointed out. You'll graduate by next year. Oh, right. Huh, well, dang, guess we won't have classes together then. But you do hang around the monastery anyways, right? Maybe we can hang out. I would love that. Flayn exclaimed, smiling brightly. I have spoken with the other students at times, but I haven't really hung out with someone before. Oh, then you can hang out with us right now. Come in, sit. Shay insisted, taking her seat again and patting the spot next to her. So of course Flayn eagerly accepted the offer. Thank you. Ah, so what are you two doing? I was having lunch, and Shay was glaring at her book, Leonie answered. I'm not glaring, I'm concentrating, Shay explained, pointing to the ornate black book. This stuff's complicated. Oh? What is it about, if I may ask? Flayn inquired. Dark magic. I'm pretty good at it, but I don't know a ton, so Lysithea helped me out and gave me this book of it. Some of the bigger spells get really complicated, so it's been tricky for me to figure out. Oh, I see. Flayn wasn't quite sure how to feel about that revelation. She wasn't particularly fond of dark magic, especially with the memories it brought up, but she was impressed to see Shay was working hard to better herself. Well, I'm sure you'll get it soon enough. Heh, thanks. How about you? Do you have anything going on today? Oh, not especially. It is my birthday, so I imagine Seath has some surprise planned. It's your birthday? Shay interrupted. Huh. Your birthday is on St. Sethleen's Day? Leonie asked. Yes to both questions. Flayn answered with a bright smile. It was quite fortuitous for me to share a saint's birthday. Right, Glancing around, Shay grabbed a sweet bun off a plate she was eating from. Here you go. Oh, thank you. Flayn said, quite happy to have a delicious treat. You really need to eat more than just sweets, you know, Leonie said, frowning at Shay. I do eat more than that, I'm just having these because Lysithea says sugar helps the brain. Pretty sure she just says that so she can get away with having as many sweets as she can. Nah, I'm pretty sure she's right. She's really smart. I'm not denying that, but she can still lie. That girl has a really big sweet tooth. Well, until proven otherwise, I'll take her advice. I think Lysithea makes a good point, Flayn mentioned in between munching on her treat. My mind works much better after having something sweet. Ah, see? Proof. Leonie sighed. No offense, but I don't think Flayn's an expert on the subject. She might be. How about it, Flayn? Are you an expert on food stuff? Flayn paused mid-bite, then felt a smile come to her face. I would not call myself an expert, but I have created many dishes that my brother has called extraordinary. Really? Heh, you know, I'm something of a cook too. Think they'd let us make something if we asked the kitchen? Oh, certainly. We should go right now. Ha. Yeah, alright, let's do it. Shay said, pushing herself up from the table before quite casually picking Flayn up from her seat and setting her down, earning a surprised blink from the shorter girl. Huh. You are very strong, Shay, but please do not do that again. Oh, sorry. Okay, no picking you up without permission, got it. Shay gave her a thumbs up while Leonie let out a sigh. Shouldn't that be obvious? You shouldn't be grabbing anyone. Hey, I did it without thinking. Besides, I'm pretty sure I saw you pick up Ignatz once. Leonie waved a hand. That's different, he's a classmate. I don't get how that's different, but alright. Anyways, Flane, let's go make something. Let's. About half an hour later, Shay stared at the bubbling, blackened ruin in the pot that Flane was happily stirring, taking note of what looked like chunks of what she thought had to be fish in it, because she'd been cutting up a Tutate's pike for the dish, and yet, whatever those lumps were, they didn't look like fish. Hey Flane. Yes Shay. What did you say this dish was called again? Immortality stew. They say it makes those who dine upon it hardier and more durable. Huh. She stared at the concoction in the pot, taking note of how it seemed somehow both purple and green in parts of it. The colors vaguely reminded her of when her dad's mercs had been hired to hunt down a demonic beast. The chunks looked almost like that thing's blue-gray scales, and the broth was vaguely like the poison saliva it had. Do not eat that. Shay paused, then glanced at Arvel, who had a deeply disturbed expression on their face. That is the single most toxic brew I have ever seen. You would die. Or at least have severe stomach troubles for the rest of the day. Shay turned her gaze back to the immortality stew. She couldn't help but think that stew was supposed to be easy. You just put things in a pot and boil it. So how did? Hey Flane, you said it was your birthday, right? Yes, I did. You gave me a bun as a present, remember? Oh sure, I remember, but I just had a thought that we should do something bigger to celebrate. Like, say, heading into town. We could go buy some more sweets and, maybe a cookbook, also. Oh. That sounds like a wonderful idea. Though, is it fine to leave the stew on the fire like this? Oh totally. I've cooked before, remember? I'll just tell the kitchen staff about it, they can do whatever they want with it. Ah, very well then. Flane hopped from her stool and began undoing her apron while Shay moved over to one of the cooks and very quickly muttered to them that no one should, under any circumstances, eat from that pot in particular, before heading out to help Flane enjoy her birthday, far from any kitchens. So, do you live at the monastery? Shay asked as they walked around the town. I do, but I only recently began living here. My brother decided it was best for me to move here, and I'm quite glad with that decision. Huh, where did you live before? Ah, I would prefer not to talk about it, Flane replied, not wanting to explain that she lived in Zonatos. Oh, sure. Sorry if I brought up bad memories. Well, not so much bad, just lonely ones. Then it's a good thing there's so many people around here. Quite. This is the first time I've been able to go out shopping, much less with a friend. Brother doesn't let me go out shopping, though he makes sure to go out when I request something and he has time, Flane explained, a smile on her face as she looked around town. Huh. You know, he almost sounds more like your dad. Huh? Why would you assume such a thing? Flane asked, worried her cover was blown. I was just joking. Shay responded, wondering why Flane was acting like that. Oh, okay good. Oh hey, those are also students of the academy, no? Flane inquired as she pointed over at Lawrence and Sylvain, who were attempting and failing at flirting with townsfolk. Which, while funny, did make Shay frown as she looked at Sylvain. Yeah, we probably should stay away from them. Oh, that's a bit funny. Brother also said the same thing to me about those two. Huh, guess Seath isn't that bad. He also said the same thing about you and your sister. Maybe you shouldn't listen to him sometimes. Flane giggled. Perhaps. He's often far too protective, though I can understand his concerns. Well, some of them. I don't think his insistence that I not speak with any male students is warranted. Wait, seriously? He actually said that. Something to that effect, though I can somewhat understand his reasoning, looking at those two, she noted, referring to Sylvain and Lawrence, who weren't having any more luck with their contest. Especially since Sylvain was just punched in the stomach. Oh, ouch. Shouldn't have gone for Gertrude. Oh, you know her. Yeah, she's a mercenary from the same company as me. Maybe we should go say, actually, let's not go say hi to her, she'd be a bad influence. She did smoke, after all. Flayn paused, then pouted. Now you are sounding a good deal like my brother. Hey, he's not completely wrong. Just mostly. I'm a great influence, for instance. I'm pretty sure if we train together, I can help you get super strong. I'm not sure that's the same type of influence my brother is talking about. Flayn paused again, considering Shay's suggestion. And wondering just what it would be like to have big muscles. Raphael has helped me grow stronger by aiding me with my battle cry. Would it be something like that? Oh sure, stuff like that is important. Helps you keep your mind focused. Really? Raphael didn't mention that. Well, he is a lot more muscular than me, so I guess he does his screaming for another reason. No, I focus on speed, big muscles would get in the way. She tilted her head, crossing her arms over her chest. I think. Because you're heavier? Right. I believe so. Though, now that Flayn thought about it, she used to be pretty big in dragon form and she was still fast then. We should find someone smarter than us, Shay said with a nod, before glancing around to find someone. Can't ask Sylvain, he's terrible and I don't like him. Lawrence would be too pompous about it. Oh hey. Hey Lysithea. Shay? Why are you yelling? The mage asked as she glanced over at the pair, a small bag in hand. Hey, do muscles make you slower? Lysithea glanced at Flayn. Can you explain why she's asking that? Oh, we were talking about training together, and Shay started to wonder if she should train to get bigger muscles. Yes, Shay, muscles make you slower. Also I thought I was your mentor? Why are you suddenly trying to be more muscular? Oh, do magic and muscles not go together? Mages wear light enchanted clothes and usually aren't the most defended. So as it stands, being big and muscular just means you'll be a bigger target. So if you want to be fast and use magic, getting big muscles isn't the best option. Yeah, that makes sense, Shay said as she nodded. Oh yeah, so what are you doing out here? I was asked to do some errands. The storage was running low on soap, so they asked me to get some for our class chores. Lysithea glanced between the two. So what are you two doing here? Oh, it's Flayn's birthday, so we were shopping for a cookbook for her, and maybe some sweets. Do you want to join? Well, I might as well come along to make sure you don't get lost. PFF, like I could get lost here. I know exactly where I'm going. Shay declared, before walking right towards the gates leading out of town, prompting an annoyed noise from Lysithea and a confused sound from Flayn. Is that where the cookbooks are sold? No, she's just stupid. Come along, let's catch up to her, Lysithea decided, leading the way as Flayn smiled. She really should head into town more often. If you had wanted to go into town, you could have asked me and I would have gone with you, Seath chided, a frown on his face as he looked down at a pouting Flayn, who had seen Shay and Lysithea off earlier after their nice day on the town. Is it really so wrong that I hang out with a friend? I never said that, I just want to make sure you're safe, and I don't think hanging out with a mercenary is safe. Shay is my friend, and I kindly ask that you treat her as such. Friend or not, you should still be careful. She has already caused a lot of trouble at the academy, and I don't want her to be a bad influence on you. I fail to see how buying a cookbook can constitute as a bad influence, Flayn responded, getting Seath to sigh. She neglected to mention them running into a bear while trying to find Shay outside the monastery walls. Lysithea and Shay easily dispatched it, so it wasn't like it was an actual problem. Just please make sure to inform me if you're heading out again, okay? Excuse me, looking over, the father and daughter pair saw Byleth approaching them, some flowers in hand. Is everything okay? Nothing that should matter to you, Professor. Did you require something? Seath asked, turning to face her. A few things. First, Flayn, were you the one who made the stew in the kitchen? Oh, that I was. Shay and I were cooking before we decided to head out into town together. Right, Dimitri wanted to know who cooked that, apparently he enjoyed it. He did. Both Flayn and Seath asked, the latter sounding far more surprised. Yeah, apparently he liked the texture. I didn't have any myself, but it sounded interesting. Oh, but I wanted to give you these. Extending the flowers she had, Byleth handed over the bouquet of forget-me-nots to Flame. You like these flowers, right? Oh, absolutely, thank you Professor. Flame said, smiling as she took the bouquet. How did you know? I notice these kinds of things, Byleth replied, before glancing at Seath. Actually, when is your birthday? The records I have only list the student's birthday. There is no need dash. Brother's birthday is on St. Sikal's Day, and he quite enjoys fishing if you want an idea for what to get him. Flame cut in with a smile. Fishing is enjoyable, Byleth agreed with a nod. I actually caught a crayfish recently, that I'm keeping as a pet. You did? May I see them? Of course, I named them Snappy. Oh, what a wonderful name. Flame said, smiling as she followed behind Byleth. Sighing, Seath watched the two walk away, then started to think. If Professor Byleth was keeping a pet, then it would likely be in her room. Which meant she was leading Flame to her room. Professor, get back here. I need to discuss with you what is and isn't appropriate conduct. Seath shouted, chasing after the two. Notes. Check the description for the links to the author.